Welcome back. This is lesson number 11. This is the first lesson of our political systems unit. And in our political systems unit, that's when I usually take a little bit more time and look at economic collectivism. So when I say political systems, we will be focused on democracies and dictatorships, but when we look at dictatorships, we will be going back into a little economics. You can never get too far away from that stuff. So in this lesson, we are going to be comparing individualism and collectivism again, and we'll be looking at some of the foundations of society. And yeah, let's jump in. I love this idea. How can we really look at the difference between individualism and collectivism? Well, we can look at Dr. Jonas Salk. Dr. Jonas Salk, who selfishly gave away the patent polio vaccine for the public good. And when asked about it, he said, "Would you patent the sun?" That's collectivism. That's when this individual had created a cure for the plague of his day, and rather than profiting from it individually, he gave it out there for public ownership because he understood the collective need for it. That's collectivism. Individualism versus collective identity. We have some thoughts on that as well. And we also talk about what is the foundation of a society. What should be the primary virtues, the morals that hold a society together. And one of them, Peter Singer, is a philosopher that says that those who attain the American dream are very often the moral equivalent of murderers. Now, there's a rejection of individualism if I've never heard one, or if I have ever heard one. Here's some other thoughts on what is the American dream. People don't seem to be able to actually agree on what does it mean. Is it personal freedom? Is it meeting your basic needs? Is it achieving harmony with nature? Is it having free time? Is it achieving your potential? There's an importance here economically to look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs and then talk about politically what kind of government, if any, is needed to unlock our highest levels of existence. It has been said that we are all slaves to something, and politically and economically, in terms of individualism and collectivism, we must understand what is that cornerstone that we want to be a slave to. Again, we've been looking at liberalism as an evolving ideology, and to explore the evolution of liberalism, we have some photos here. In this photo, we have an individual policing the clothing that these women are wearing at the beach. He's trying to force them to adhere to the norm of modesty. He wants them to be modest. He wants to ensure that they're not too revealing of their bodies. Now, contrast that with a more contemporary example in France, where this individual is being told that she's being too modest, that she is wearing very traditional clothing and it's upsetting people around her. So they would like her to be less modest, less traditional, less conservative, and more revealing of her body. This shows the evolution of societal norms. That 100 years ago, police were telling you to cover up. Now police are telling you to take some of your clothes off. Now, this evolution of society and what's happening in 2020 as I'm recording this really gets me thinking about this cartoon. What is objectionable really is based upon context, time and place. That liberalism is an evolving ideology, and because of that, what we see as acceptable also evolves. So this cartoon from 2017, we see an activist trying to quite literally whitewash objectionable history, try to erase history. And sometimes that includes eliminating some of those founding fathers and principles of nations like America. As we look back and we see, even in great individuals like George Washington, different actions or traits that in a modern world are no longer desirable. But the cartoonist is suggesting that the individual might be whitewashing history in 2017, but the activist in 2093 might be whitewashing him. And that activist may not even be recognizably human anymore. So the purpose of this cartoon cartoon from the Edmonton Journal, by the way, is meant to inspire you to think about the evolution of society and about the cancel culture that we're in and the potential dangers that we have when we change quite quickly, when we remove ourselves from that great chain of being and potentially question, where's the society going? So freedom versus security is a recurring theme that we've talked about in a previous lesson. And with the burkini ban mentioned above, that gives us another example of, how much or to what extent can we allow freedom in society? Or is group security more important than freedom? There are some less obvious applications of that. Like, for example, I might think I have the freedom to eat nuts, but if there's somebody in my classroom that is allergic to nuts, then there might be a security issue that's more important than my freedom. That reminds me of John Stuart Mill and the harm principle. So we are segueing into political systems, and when we look at governments, there are some key terms we want you to talk about. Legitimacy. What is it that makes that government legitimate? This was simple before the time of the French Revolution because we said that government was legitimate because God chose it to be so, through the divine right of kings. But now that we have a democracy, the legitimacy must come from an expression of the will of the people. And because it comes from an expression of the will of the people, there needs to be some kind of accountability, some kind of loop back to the people so we can trace policy, government actions to the people that are the foundation of the legitimacy of government. We're putting policy into place that is popular with the people, that the people need. There are some terms related to this that come up a lot on the diploma exam, like discontent and dissent. And there are stories in literature, English language arts, hypothetical case studies that show the expression of dissent and discontent when individuals find themselves living in a society that no longer upholds the will of the people. There's a link to a clip from Handmaid's Tale there that can help you out explore that. And that, my friends, is a quick, very quick introduction to political systems. So this unit, which is about 40 to 45% of the year, we're going to be exploring individualism and collectivism now from a political standpoint and trying to really define where is the dividing line between freedom and the need to be controlled. Look forward to seeing you next time.